Jamie's on his way back to Scotland with Claire and Ian, and unfortunately is enlisted to fight for the Continentals. And ultimately, at that point, he's reluctant, but there really is no other option.
Claire really understands Jamie's reasoning. In a way, it's a tribute to Brianna and to the future that she's going to have. They want to be part in making this country the best it can be.
In regards to war and battle, William wants that glory and he wants to be a part of that. And he has a very romantic view of war. It's just because he's naive, I think, at this point.
When Ian first meets William, he's quite fascinated by him. I mean, here in front of him is the son of Jamie, you know, his cousin. And yet he can't be honest with him. He can't tell him. He made that promise to Jamie that no matter what, that secret was safe. I love that scene because of all the kind of subtext that's going on and the looks from Ian and his almost desperation to confide in him and tell him, but taking a step back and kind of just watching from afar.
Charles was so excited, and he infused such enthusiasm to the set. It was infectious. You know, he's just been a wonderful addition.
There, we gave him a kind of a boot camp of etiquette and the proper decorum that he would use. We turned him into, not that he wasn't a gentleman before, but we had to turn him into a period gentleman, and he really did dive into that.
Because the interview process was so nasty, shall we say, and invasive in terms of it becoming about sex instead of just about qualification for the job, I think because Brianna then went through that, I almost think it bettered the end result for her, because I think then she just feels even more proud of herself as a woman and everything else. She knows how proud her parents would have been of her. Maybe if she hadn't have been in the 18th century and experienced the misogyny there, maybe she wouldn't have got the job. And I do love that bit when he says, oh, we're looking for an assistant, and she's kind of like, yeah, I know, but this is what I'm applying for. You can tell me what you're looking for, but here's what you've got.
The Hunters were kind of a difficult casting because they are kind of an iconic pair as well, and you always feel such pressure to get that right. Joey and Izzy, they've just kind of elevated every scene they've been in.
It's a nation on the verge of war. They're very aware of that, and these two men kind of just appear into her life in a very dramatic way.
They sort of interrupt Denny and Rachel's very quiet Quaker life. It's just sort of bolt out of the blue. Suddenly there's a mohawk and another guy dying on horseback.
I do think there is like a certain air of suspicion. Like I think she thinks that William is on the British side.
Who would expect that Jamie's son would be a redcoat?
With Ian, I think actually that first interaction is so fleeting, but she realizes that he saved this man's life, and I think she thinks he's very kind of heroic for doing that. It's a bit fun for her to have these kind of interactions with these boys when before it's just been her and Denny. I think she's enjoying it. She's enjoying like a little bit of a cheeky flirt.
I think young Ian's first impression of Rachel is, oh, she's lovely.
That was such a fun day. Charles had like a prosthetic on his arm that was attached to a tube, and someone was hid under the table ready to pump essentially pus up through the tube and out through Charles's arm. And so when I saw into the arm, that's when the pus comes out. And hats off to the props department, because it was so disgusting and so realistic.
I almost got a bit of phantom pain in my arm because my brain was like, oh, there's a hole in your arm. That's how realistic it was.
So this was one of the first scenes that I filmed, and I am actually quite squeamish, which doesn't bode well for somebody who's like playing a nurse. Denny was like, you know, was like soaring into the arm, and I was off camera and I was like fully gagging. I was like, this is so disgusting. But I was like, I better get used to this. I don't know how Kat does it.
Well, later we find out that Claire has bumped into Tom Christie, and he's gone in for the lips. He kisses Claire, which Claire then reveals or admits to Jamie. And actually, surprisingly, maybe this is the Jamie of the, you know, an older, wiser Jamie. His reaction is surprising. You know, he's pretty cool with it.
Claire gets a kiss from Tom Christie, which she definitely wasn't expecting. Very funny to film. You know, it's very funny when you play against somebody and you sort of always have one type of relationship and then it gets flipped. It's always like, oh, whoa, we're doing this. He's a big old softie at his core, isn't he, old Tom Christie?
Ballybroch is the family home of the Frasers. I think it means a lot to try and keep it within the family, and we find ourselves in the position that we can.
Even just living there, she can probably feel people walking around, but in the other century. It makes them feel so close to Jamie and Claire. Bree is determined to hold on to that family heirloom.